Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting.
We are diving right in.
Yeah, deep into the feed this morning, and the theme is just radical acceleration. It's everywhere.
It really is. It feels like we're in this frantic, high-stakes AI arms race on one side, speed versus reasoning.
And then on the other side, you've got these really intense alarm bells ringing in the financial markets.
Absolutely. And it's all tied together with this cultural critique about, where we're actually choosing to put our focus.
So our mission today is to give you the sharp, essential context for the 13 posts that are really driving the conversation. We're moving fast, so let's get right into it. First up, the great AI race.
A fascinating split between just raw speed and deep thought.
Exactly. Let's start with speed. Post 1 from @_Akalik, he announces, Microsoft just released Vibe Voice Realtime -0.5B.
Okay, so this is a huge but kind of a quiet breakthrough. It's a text-to-speech model.
500 million parameters.
Yeah, but the number isn't the story here. The speed is the story. They managed to get an impressive 300 millisecond first audible latency.
300 milliseconds. I mean, that's nothing. It's essentially real time.
It's instantaneous. And that shifts the entire game away from cloud dependency and toward, true edge applications.
So you're talking about putting this on phones and cars, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Lightweight hardware, customer service bots, anywhere you just cannot tolerate that split-second lag. It even outperforms VALL-E 2 on some benchmarks, and the MIT license means developers can grab it right now.
Even if it is just English only for now.
For now. It's infrastructure progress.
Yeah.
You just unlocks a whole new level of usability.
Okay, so Microsoft is nailing speed, but Google is right there to remind us that speed doesn't matter if the model can't, think.
Right. Which brings us to their new rollout. This is post 4 from @JeffDean. Gemini 3 Deepthink is now available for Ultra users, making available our IMO and ICPC gold medal winning technology.
Okay, IMO and ICPC. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the International Mathematical Olympiad and the Collegiate Programming Contest.
Yeah, we're not talking about simple math problems here. These are algorithms designed to win elite, competitive problem-solving challenges. So integrating that into an AI, that's a whole different level of reasoning.
So how does that actually work? How does it manifest in the results?
Well, Deepthink uses a kind of parallel hypothesis exploration, so it doesn't just follow one single chain of thought.
It's exploring multiple paths at once.
Exactly. It generates and explores multiple ways to get to the solution simultaneously. And because of that, it's crushing Gemini 3 Pro on the hardest benchmarks. We're seeing up to a 15% improvement on ARC-AGI-2.
And a 15% jump on a benchmark designed to test novel problem solving. That is a massive leap.
It is. And it's not just benchmarks. Sundar Pichai follows up with a real-world example. This is post 7 from him. Gemini 3 Deepthink mode brings our strongest reasoning capabilities yet. Cool example of how it can simulate complex 3D architecture.
Simulating architecture is impressive, for sure, but the real potential seems to be what people are talking about in the replies.
Oh, absolutely. The big idea is adapting this for Google Workspace, turning it into a project brain.
A project brain, so it remembers context.
Exactly. Imagine an AI that maintains context over weeks across all your docs, sheets, your drive. It becomes this organizational memory. It's not just doing a task, it's a long-term knowledge partner.
That's a huge shift, but not every model is built for that kind of deep thought, which is an important distinction.
A vital one. Which brings us to post 11 from @Technium. He just asks, do people realize this isn't a reasoning model?
And he's talking about Mistral Large 3.
Right, he's making a really important technical point. Mistral Large 3 is a mixture of experts model and MoE.
So think of it like a team of specialists instead of one giant brain.
That's a perfect way to put it. It has 675 billion total parameters, which sounds huge, but only about 41 billion are active for any single prompt. The query gets routed to the right expert.
So it's built for speed and efficiency, not long, complex reasoning.
Precisely. It's for high-throughput, low-latency enterprise tasks. And it's great at that. It's number 2 among open non-reasoning models. It's just a reminder that you have to evaluate these tools based on what they were actually designed to do.
Okay, let's move from the tech itself to the companies building it. And the human fallout. Post 2 from @Anthropic AI says, we're launching Anthropic Interviewer, a new tool to help us understand people's perspectives on AI.
This is so interesting. They're using their own AI, Claude, to basically run a massive, scalable focus group to figure out how humans feel about AI.
An AI interviewing people about AI? What could go wrong?
Right. But the initial findings are fascinating. The general workforce. They report huge time savings, like up to 86%.
Which is great for productivity, but there's a catch.
A big one. For creative professionals, they found a 70% stigma for using AI in their work.
70%. Why so high?
It seems to boil down to identity. If you're a writer or an artist, your identity is tied to the originality of your work. Using AI feels like, well, like cheating to some, or like you're giving up the part of the job that defines you.
So it's not a technical problem, it's a psychological one.
Exactly. Anthropic is looking at psychological alignment, not just technical safety.
And speaking of companies trying to get aligned, let's look at the pressure on the old guard. Post 8 from @Markerman hits Apple really hard. Apple doesn't just fire top executives. The company completely missed on generative AI. Series overhaul was delayed by 1.5 years, and the company is facing an AI crisis.
Yeah, he's basically framing the retirement of their AI chief, John Giandrea, as a disguised firing. The critique is that Apple just fell way behind.
But hold on, couldn't you argue, based on what Anthropic found, that Apple was maybe being strategically cautious, prioritizing privacy over a messy, rushed rollout?
You could definitely make that argument.
Yeah.
But from an investor's point of view, they missed the boat. And their next move tells you everything.
The replace.
Yeah, they're bringing in Amar Subramanya, who's a former Google DeepMind engineer. That signals one thing: intense pressure to catch up, and fast. The market wants speed.
That market pressure is the perfect transition to the economy. The vibe here is just pure anxiety. And it starts with a very famous bear.
It does. Post 3 from @unusual_whales. Michael Burry has said he's expecting a prolonged market-wide sell-off that's worse than 2000, which lasted 31 months.
Wow. Coming from the guy who predicted the 2008 crisis, that's a heavy statement. What's driving it?
He sees two big structural problems. First, the obvious one: overinflated AI and tech valuations. He's looking at companies like NVIDIA and seeing echoes of the dot-com mania.
Right, pricing in years and years of growth that might not happen.
Exactly. But the second driver is maybe even more dangerous. It's the fragility caused by passive investing.
The index funds and ETFs.
Yeah, over half of U.S. equities are now in passive funds. And that means less active scrutiny of individual companies. Money just flows in based on market cap, not fundamentals.
So when panic sets in,
You get a massive crowded exit problem. Everyone tries to sell the exact same things at the exact same time, and it just amplifies the crash. It's a systemic risk he's flagging.
okay, so that's the big, scary forecast. But let's balance that with some hard data on jobs. Post 5 from @Kubaisa. Breaking. U.S. employers made 71,321 new layoff announcements in November, bringing the 2025 total up to 1.17 million layoffs.
Those numbers are real. That 1.17 million total for the year, that's the highest it's been since the pandemic hit in 2020. It's mostly tech and retail companies cutting costs because of high interest rates.
But here's the question. If layoffs are that high, how do we explain the crazy holiday spending numbers we just saw? Black Friday was huge.
And that's the nuance, right? The economy is stratified. You have these mass layoffs hitting certain sectors hard, but you also have high-earning households who are still spending.
Yeah.
They're the ones driving that $9.8 billion in Black Friday sales.
So it's an uneven picture.
Very uneven. Corporate caution on one side, but consumer spending still holding up on the other, for now. The fear is that the layoffs eventually catch up to the spending.
All right, let's shift our own attention now, quite literally, to the idea of attention itself. This next cluster of posts is a critique of where we're at.
And it starts with a serious warning. Post 6 from @Sishish. The most dangerous addiction today isn't a substance. Research on 100,000 people confirms that heavy short-form video use is just voluntary cognitive decline.
Voluntary cognitive decline. That is a brutal phrase.
It is, but it's backed by a huge 2025 meta-analysis.
Wow.
We're talking 71 studies, almost 100,000 people. And it finds a direct link between heavy short-form video use and poorer cognitive performance.
And it's specifically hitting our attention and, what was it, inhibitory control.
Exactly. Inhibitory control, that's your brain's ability to not get distracted, to resist chasing the next shiny object. By constantly feeding it 15-second dopamine hits, we're literally training our brains to be bad at deep work.
So the ability to just sit with a hard problem for 10 minutes, that's becoming a superpower.
It's becoming a rare competitive edge. The AI can do the fast stuff. The humans who can do the deep synthesis will be the ones who win.
And that idea, the value of going deep, it connects perfectly with post 9 from @Balaji's.
Oh, this is such a great point. He says, too many are interested in tech, by which they mean money, but they aren't interested in tech, by which I mean math.
He's drawing a line in the sand between the hype and the actual substance.
He really is. People want to get into crypto, but they don't want to learn cryptography. They want health tech without understanding biology. He's saying real progress comes from mastering the fundamentals, not just chasing the financial trends.
And speaking of protecting your work, we have a post about licensing. Post 13 from @DHH.
Yes, the ongoing battle over open source. He says, love how calling fizzy open source is triggering some because our MIT-derived OSASI license reserves sauce monetization rights to us as creators.
Okay, so they're defending their new license. What's the core of the issue here?
The tension is that their project, Fizzy, is open source in that you can self-host it for free, look at the code, contribute to it.
Yeah.
But the license says you can't create a competing software as a service business with it. They're protecting their main business model from, say, a giant cloud provider just taking their work and selling it without contributing anything back.
It's a business reality. They need to fund the development somehow.
Exactly. It's a necessary compromise to keep the project sustainable in today's market.
All right, let's wrap up with a quick scan of global infrastructure and a bit of domestic politics. Post 10 from @Levelcio is about speed, but not AI speed.
Right, he says. Many people don't know this, but Chinese high-speed trains are now the fastest in the world and officially faster than even the Chester Japanese Shinkansen.
That's a huge infrastructure achievement. We're talking 350 to 400 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, officially faster than Japan's Shinkansen. But what's really interesting is the cultural context in the thread.
The ticket prices.
Exactly. The business class, which is like 80 or 90 bucks, is almost always empty. The locals all stick to the super efficient $20 second-class tickets. It shows a focus on mass-scale utility over luxury.
And finally, a domestic political flashpoint. Post 12 from @LeadingReport. Breaking, Governor Tim Walz is now being investigated by Congress for allowing fraud to happen en masse.
This is about the House Oversight Committee demanding documents on that huge $240 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme in Minnesota.
And the allegation is that the governor's administration ignored red flags about this program way back in 2020.
Right. It involved nonprofits siphoning federal child nutrition funds. This very politically charged probe, obviously looking at how COVID-era funds were managed, and it's definitely going to be a big issue for Walz's re-election campaign.
Okay, that brings us to the end of today's deep dive. A lot to process.
Yeah, you see this dramatic acceleration in AI, splitting between pure speed and complex reasoning. And at the same time, the market is flashing these really serious warnings about deep structural problems.
But the thread that connects it all really is this idea of focus, of scarcity, the scarcity of real foundational knowledge and the preciousness of sustained attention.
Everything is moving faster, but who's actually pausing to understand the math behind it all?
So the question this leaves for you is, given this pace, how are you dedicating your own time to master the fundamentals in your field?
Think about that OSASI license we talked about. What's your personal license for your own time and attention? What rules are you setting to protect that focus from being monetized by the market of distraction?
Are you reserving your energy for deep, valuable work, or are you letting it all get consumed by the noise?
Use the insights you gained today to set those boundaries. We'll be back tomorrow to dive into whatever the feed throws at us next. Until then, stay informed.
And stay focused.